rise. Ms. Devanzo, will you please lead us in the pledge?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing and join the board in a moment of silence as we honor our veterans, our first responders, and of course, continue to please keep all the innocent people in the Middle East in your thoughts and prayers as they suffer the consequences of this horrible war. Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This evening we have we have a hearing, and then we have the continuation of a hearing from last month. And I will ask Mr. Rivera to please call the first item.
Application of Herrick's Mineola LLC for a special use permit pursuant to Chapter 550 of the Code of the Incorporated Village of Mineola entitled Zoning, Section 550-12, entitled B1 Districts, subsection B, entitled Special Uses, to establish a restaurant upon the property known as 530 Jericho Turnpike, Mineola, New York, known and designated on the Nassau County Land and Tax Map as Section 9, Block 19, Lot 133.
Thank you. Mr. O'Keefe, affidavit of mailings? Great, thank you. Mr. Gibbons?
Nassau County's recommended a local determination, and I'd ask for a resolution under CEQA declaring this a type 2 action.
Entertain a motion?
Motion.
Motion by trustee Salaski, seconded by trustee Casado. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Ladies and gentlemen, this evening, as I said, we have two hearings. This is a new hearing. The applicant will approach the podium. Please identify yourself and your relationship to the applicant, at which point, after the applicant's presentation, the board will ask any questions that we have, and then we'll open it up to public comment, and then we'll ask the applicant to come back up and answer any questions or concerns that the public may have. And then, again, if the board has any questions after that, we will interact with the applicant again. Please. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the board. My name is Andrea Curto. I'm with the firm of Forcelli, Deegan, Tirana, with offices at 333 Earl Ovington Boulevard, Uniondale, New York. I'm here on behalf of Herrick's Mineola LLC. Julian Chen is here with me today. He's the co-founder and chief growth officer for Mogu, the restaurant that's going in. And Michael Korf and John Otto are also here with me today. They are the co-owners of the property. As mentioned, this is an application for a special use permit for a new upscale modern Chinese restaurant at the premises. My clients first opened their restaurants in 2020, this brand. He and his partners have 4 other locations: Woodbury, Farmingdale, Comac, and Hop Hog. I did submit an exhibit package just now, applicant's Exhibit A. The exhibit package shows existing conditions at the site. It also gives a sample menu for Mogu, as well as a sample interior. Behind me here is another sample interior, so you can get the feeling for the restaurant. A little background regarding the premises. The premises is located on the northeast corner of Jericho Turnpike and Herrick's Road. It's situated in the village's B1 zoning district and has a lot area of 4.5 acres. It's currently improved with a shopping center, a bank, and accessory parking. The building is 22,812 square feet, and it was built in 1958. The existing tenancies include 4 other food uses. It's Panera Bread, Rex's Burger House, Luigi's Pizza, and Chipotle. Harmon's Pharmacy was the prior tenant. The total area for Harmon's was 8,250 square feet. The proposed new restaurant will take up 2,727 square feet. So less than half of that. Access to the site is off 1 curb cut on Herrick's Road, 2 curb cuts on Jericho Turnpike, and 1 curb cut on Clarissa Road. I'm sure you're all very familiar with the site.
We are.
No change is proposed to the site or to the building footprint. As you all know, this is a commercial corridor. There's commercial uses up and down Jericho Turnpike. This board granted variances, special use permits in 2004 for both the bank, the drive-through, as well as Panera Bread. And then in 2015, granted another special use permit for Rex's Burger House. And I've provided copies of those decisions in your packet. So just to give you a little bit more flair on Mogu, so what distinguishes this restaurant from other restaurants is that their cooking style. So they have no open flames, no deep fryers, no woks, no type 1 hoods. So they use industrial steam-injected convection ovens, and then they use computer-operated units that simulate what a wok would do. So you press a button, and the computer knows how much to cook the food. It's pretty cool. It's very innovative. It's very healthy. So it's a healthier alternative for patrons. With respect to the business model, they're proposing only 42 seats. They have 20% dine-in, 20% delivery, and 60% takeout, which accounts for the reason why they only have 42 seats. Most of the floor space, as you could see, is dedicated to the kitchen, so it's food prep and storage areas, and there's also just a small office in the rear. Their proposed hours of operation are 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. Number of employees are 8 to 14. This is what's considered a fast casual establishment, which means that you go up to the counter, you order your food, you pay for it, you sit down, and then a runner will come and serve you the food. But it's not a typical restaurant with waitress or waiter service. With respect to food deliveries, Mogu has a central kitchen, and that's located on Fulton Street in Farmingdale. So from that location, they deliver proteins, noodles, rice, produce, and partially cooked appetizers, and they bring that to the site. And then they also have deliveries from Cisco Foods and US Foods. That's twice a week between 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. The central kitchen deliveries are once a day. They're in a small Sprinter van, and that's between 2 and 4 p.m. With respect to special use permit standards, the proposed use will be harmonious with other uses in the neighborhood. Jericho Turnpike is an existing commercial corridor, and this is an established location with existing food uses. There is sufficient parking on site. Total of 216 parking stalls right now. The code requires 212 for existing and the proposed use, so we're gonna have 4 excess parking stalls, even with the use that we're proposing. The proposed use is a desirable service for the residents and businesses in the area. It will not have a significant effect on traffic in the area, so it's gonna draw from local businesses and residents, some of which can even walk to the site. The deliveries, as I mentioned, are minimal. You have once a day from Central Kitchen and twice a week from Cisco. Also, the time frames that they're proposing are not peak traffic hours on Jericho, so not your peak morning and peak afternoon when people are going or coming back to work. Also, given the unique cooking techniques, you're not going to have odors, so you're not going to have those issues. You have residents in the back, you're not going to have that issue. And finally, with respect to garbage disposal, they will put all food waste within a refrigerated cooler, and then once ready for pickup, they take it outside, but only at that point. They'll keep it inside, and that's to prevent any rodents or anything like that happening at the site. So keep it clean.
Excellent. That was very thorough. Very thorough and very good. We wish that all of our applicants were this well prepared. Question to that, will there be a liquor license?
No.
No liquor license, okay, that's good. When, you mentioned garbage about keeping it in a freezer, then bringing it out, private carter.
Correct. It is private carting.
And is that in the rear of the rear of the Panera, or would it be in the rear of their building? Their building, okay. And so that everyone understands, this is, Harmon was there, essentially splitting Harmon in a little less than half on the furthest north section to put this in. So there'll be one more storefront, essentially, that will be vacant, but not for long. we
Correct.
hope. So everyone knows, very popular. It's right by Mineola High School, not too far from Garden City High School, Herrick's High School, so it's very popular with young, and also Adelphi University, of course, is not that far away. I think the concept is great. I'm glad to see that they are choosing Mineola. When you hear about places like Farmingdale, et cetera, it's really kind of the type of places that we like to be in the same sandbox with, so,
Yes.
in terms of the ideas of having this variety, so, sounds great. Deliveries, not incoming deliveries, outgoing deliveries, is it their own delivery system, or is it Uber Eats, DoorDash, and the like? And if so, will they have a separate pickup? Will they be just driving up? How will that be handled? If you don't mind coming up, and how do you do it in Farmingdale and Comac and your other locations? And just
Thank you.
please provide your name and.
Sure, my name is Julian Chen. I'm the co-founder and
And
chief,
address the board.
I
Sorry.
apologize,
That's
and
okay.
chief growth officer of Mogu Modern Chinese Kitchen. So we use third-party delivery services such as Uber Eats, Grubhub, and DoorDash. So our system's fully integrated, and it shoots directly into the kitchen, and then they just come to pick it up when it's ready.
Okay, so you don't have like a separate window or anything like that? They
So-
come physically into the establishment?
Correct, correct.
Okay. Are you going to have, this may be a question for Mr. Otto, will there be any dedicated stalls for those food delivery? In other words, are they going to just be pulling up? That's a fire lane. I've seen it, obviously, when people go to Luigi's, when people go to Rex's, but they're not supposed to do that. So will there be any stalls that are dedicated close to your establishment that will be dedicated to those third-party food delivery systems? And perhaps, we have enough experience from Panera and Rex and others. How do they do it? And perhaps you would be using the same system.
Right, I'll defer to Mr. Otto.
Yep. You'll have to come up here. Yep.
It's a good question.
Please identify yourself.
Jonathan Otto, I'm the owner of the shopping center. We have been thinking about, and we are, I don't know, Michael, do we need approval or, no? So we're gonna take the first 2 spots of each row and dedicate them as 15-minute spots.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, and so that'll benefit all the restaurants, and the 2 spots, I guess, in front of Mogu, which is on the corner,
Mhm.
will be utilized for either the delivery services to park, come in and get it, or customers who
Right.
are gonna be taking out.
I think that's an excellent idea. I see that going on in many shopping centers
Yeah.
such as yours, and it's a no-brainer. And the fact that you have that row
Right.
along the entire row of stores, if you dedicate the 2 of them, it certainly will facilitate, because like I said, we've all seen it where, you'll just pull up, but God forbid if there's,
Fine,
need for emergency, and even for the turning radius of people coming out of the aisles, it gets a little complicated. So we would appreciate, has nothing to do with you, it's more with the landlord, but yeah, I think that would be a good movement, and for the eventual use of that other currently empty storefront. I think that would be a nice uniform kind of thing. So thank you, Mr. Otto.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I don't have any other questions, Deputy Mayor?
No, thank you. Thank you for the thorough presentation.
You're welcome.
It seems like a very interesting concept. So thank you for choosing Mineola, and if you're approved, we wish you luck.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very
Mr.
much.
Yes, good evening. So as you said, we have Panera, Rex Burgers, Luigi's Pizza, and Chipotle.
Yes,
I think going to be a great addition to that block. And obviously, parking's not going to be an issue. You have parking lots all over the place, so I have no problem there.
great,
Yeah, thank you. Mr. Clark?
Welcome to Mineola.
thank you.
I have no questions.
Thank you. Trustee Salaski?
I just have one question. Are you using the basement at all?
This tenant is not. They're only leasing the space on the first floor.
So there'll be no storage in that basement?
Well, not for this tenant, and maybe a future tenant will use it, because
Okay.
there is storage space.
Okay.
But this tenant is not leasing that space.
And the parking lot behind you, what is that basically used for?
The 100 spots that are on the north side of Clarissa,
Right.
it's part of this shopping center.
I'm talking about literally right behind where Harmon's used to be,
Oh.
not across Clarissa.
Oh, okay.
Clarissa, yeah.
That's used for, yeah, go ahead.
That's used mostly for employee parking.
So the employees of this restaurant would be back there?
Yes.
So the whole strip mall, all employees
We
are
tr-
supposed
we
to
try,
park?
we try and get the.
I know, I
yeah.
understand, they probably, some
Yes.
don't, but that's what that space is designed for, just for the employees?
Yes, so the customers have more spots up front.
Okay, great, thank you. And welcome to Mineola, if you're approved.
And I do have to say something. I was here a number of years ago when Mr. Otto was here, perhaps for the Rex Burger application. And at the time, we had some choice words for Mr. Otto in regards to the shopping center. But I have to say that as someone who's there almost daily, he really keeps it very nice, very clean, manicured, landscaped. Oftentimes, we have applicants who come in, large corporate applicants, perhaps with 3 letters in their name, and they say these great things. In the first 6 months, everything looks beautiful, and then the landscapers disappear, and the snow removal disappears. And I do have to say that that shopping center is a first-class shopping center in the village, and adding something like this is only going to enhance that. So if you're out there and if you're looking to open a business, there's 1 spot left. So go ahead and go see Mr. Otto, and you know, maybe some Greek, not Portuguese, we have enough of that, but maybe some Greek,
Yeah,
right?
maybe, why not?
All right,
Yeah.
There we go. All right, if you don't mind, you have a seat. I'll open it up
Yes.
to public comment. Anyone in the 2nd row? Anyone in the 3rd row? 4th row? 5th row? 6th row? Last row? Nope, okay, come on back up. Any other questions from the board? No? I think there's nothing to preclude us from voting this evening, Mr. Givens?
No, Mayor.
All right, I will entertain a motion to approve the application.
Motion.
Oh, I do have one question. If approved tonight, timeline for opening? You'll have to, this is being televised, so, I mean, we're not gonna hold you to it. I just wanna have an idea of, you know, when you think you may open. I mean, are we talking weeks, months, this year, next year?
Yes, my name is Michael Korf. I'm part owner of the property. Yeah, we expect to open up in the first quarter of 2024.
Okay, excellent.
All right?
Okay, great, thank you so much. Entertain a motion to approve?
Motion.
Motion by
Second.
Deputy Mayor Sartori, seconded by Trustee Casado. Mr. Rivera, please poll the board.
Yes.
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 Yes. Welcome, welcome. We do have some members from the Mineola Chamber of Commerce here. Familiarize yourself with the chamber and join the chamber, and please participate. I know you're on the very, very western fringe of our village, but we thank you for choosing Mineola and hope that you'll become a vibrant part. Mr. O'Keefe, our building superintendent's there. Anything that you need, any questions, any concerns, signage, lighting, and things of the like, please make sure to reach out. And although we didn't have any residents speak tonight, be cognizant that you are in a neighborhood that we do have, you know, residents, single-family homes not too far from there. So just be aware of that. If you could push your delivery drivers off onto Herrick's or to Jericho rather than going through the neighborhood, we'd appreciate that. Okay? We look forward to that grand opening. Congratulations. Have a great night. John, just go. All right. I thought all of you would have been here for that application, but thank you for sticking around. We'll just give them, oh, they've broken down. All right, we're gonna move right into the continuation of the public hearing from September 13th of 2023. And I'll ask Mr. Rivera to please read the hearing notice.
Application of Third Front LLC for a special permit pursuant to Chapter 550 of the Code of the Incorporated Village of Mineola entitled Zoning, Section 550-15.1, entitled Downtown Overlay District, to construct a 10-story, 240-unit residential building located on the south side of Third Street upon the property currently known as 114 Old Country Road, Mineola, New York, known and designated on the Nassau County Land and Tax Map as Section 9, Block 350, Lots 4 through 7, 8, 11, 13, 14 through 17, and a 10-story, 250-unit residential building located on the north side of Third Street upon the property currently known as 109 Front Street, Mineola, New York, known and designated on the Nassau County Land and Tax Map as Section 9, Block 355, Lots 25, 36, 128, 129, 137, 139, 140, 242, and 243.
Thank you. Mr. Gibbons, we did the affidavit of mailings from last time, and we did Nassau County last time as well, correct?
All ready to go, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Format is the same as the previous application and every application. While Mr. Walsh is getting his papers ready, I do want to remind everyone that we do have a work session after this and a public meeting after that as well, so you can stick around after the hearing. Mr. Walsh.
Good evening. Good evening, Mayor, members of the board, and Mineola public. I'm Kevin Walsh from the firm Walsh, Marcus, McDougall, and DeBellis. I'm speaking here tonight on behalf of the applicant. This is a Lalazarian project. It's a continued public hearing from the September 13th public hearing. I'm happy to be here with both Kevin and Frank Lalazarian. You know them well. The village knows them well. And the team of experts that we have and the architect who actually designed these beautiful buildings that we've already talked about, but we'll talk a little bit more about. Mayor, before I begin, can I introduce into the record three documents, not for the purpose of discussion, but I indicated at the last hearing that I would leave them for the record, and I'd like to do that now if I might.
Sure.
Thank you. So I've marked them. I've marked them applicants 1, applicants 2, and applicants 3. And applicants 1 is the 2015 report done by the village planner. That's an evaluation of the multiple dwelling situation and capacity within the village. The second document is a Newsday article that I referenced at the last meeting, which refers to the number of the population of Mineola and the fact that it's trending roughly flat. And it's particularly interesting that in 1970, the planning report done by the village planner showed that the village had actually lost 3,000 residents from 1970 through 2015. That is now leveled off to a number, but the important point is that in the last few years, the population is flat. So it's not that you are drastically increasing the population of the village. And then the last document, which is applicants 3, is the Newsday article again, which showed the recent information regarding the school-age children and the cost of school-age children in the village of Mineola. I believe the number was approximately $38,000. And we discussed that last time because on everyone's level, that's a high number. And it goes to this understanding of the downtown. It goes to the understanding of the need in our local suburban municipalities to create a significant tax base. You're doing that, and this application ultimately will be part of that continuing growing tax base, which ultimately, the conclusion of all this is it protects the suburban Mineola because it allows taxes to be reasonable and fair and lower for single-family resident owners. It's a necessity when it comes to keeping a good suburban design and a good single-family home environment. So I'd also like to thank the board, and I think my client thanks the board and the public for the opportunity to come back at this continued hearing to discuss some of the ideas, the concepts, the concerns that were raised at the last meeting, both from the board and from the public. And in connection with that, we have presented a new application, or it's a modified application, to what we are hoping you will conclude addresses a bunch of the concerns that were had here. And the first and most important one is the original application, the north building, and I'm going to refer to the site plan here, showing the north building, which is the building that will front on Front Street, or the rear of it will be on Front Street. Both buildings would front on Third, but that building, the unit density has been significantly reduced. It's been reduced from 250 units to 200 units, taking 50%, 20% of the density of that building away completely. The south building, which is backs up on Old Country Road, would remain the same at 240 units. So the total reduction in units would be 490 units, would be down to 440 units. And we believe that that's a significant reduction because it impacts every one of the impacts that we talked about at the last meeting that are set forth in the expanded EAF. Taking 50 units off a development is not an insignificant number, and we're hoping, I think the Lalazarians are hoping, that you believe that that is a good change and an important change for this project. The second item, which reflects concerns that were raised at the last meeting, concerns a little bit of the height. Now, we are on the Old Country Road corridor here. The buildings, as we discussed at last meeting, are generally higher there. We've got approved buildings that have been higher than this. But in an effort to modify this building, and I'm looking now at the Old Country Road building, I know the flag is in the way, but I know you know it well. We tiered the building so that the top floor is actually set back from the lower floor. So it's set back 10 feet, and you can actually see in the color rendering that I'm referring to here, you can actually see the height difference and the height drop of 10 feet. So the portion of it that's lower than would be about 88 feet, and then it goes to the 98 feet 8 inches that we referred to in the last meeting. Now this you can see this says Old Country Road, so this is the rear of the building on Old Country Road, but it matches and mirrors the rear of the building on Front Street. So both buildings, as it relates to the outside, would have this tiered look and the reduced height on those 10 feet on those components. So we're hoping that, considering the alleyway or the corridor here on Old Country Road, that you accept that as a good modification for the purposes of the height issue. I know at the last meeting I made reference to the fact that in this area it's the south area and there is not part of the residential area. That was a mistake. But what I mean is that the residential area, beautiful residential area, is east of here. And I think the transition from this higher building to the Birchwood Court, which is a little bit lower, and then to the single-family residential community that's east of here is a good transition for the purposes of design. A couple other things I'd like to make reference to. If you look at the site plan, and I think it's in your packet, we've increased significantly the landscaping along the entranceway, the driveway off Roslyn Road to the driveway. There'll be landscaping on both sides. We have some, obviously, flexibility to do whatever other landscaping the village would deem to be appropriate. I don't think the Lalazarians will design a building that doesn't have terrific or important landscaping associated with it. And there is room here to enhance landscaping. So we've done that. In addition to that, Trustee Casado properly suggested that we should consider relocating the charging units outside the building, and they are on the site plan that you have in front of you. They're now located out there.
Thank you for doing that.
Okay. They're located out there. So the unit mix hasn't changed. Proportionately, it hasn't changed. So we've dropped the number of 2 bedrooms, we've dropped the number of 1 bedrooms, but the proportion to each other has remaining the same. So just for the record, we've dropped the 2 bedrooms from 289 units to 259 units, and we've dropped the 1 bedrooms from 201 units to 189 units. And as I said, that proportion is roughly the same as in the application that you had before this modification. The parking, there'll be 630 parking spaces on site, As part of the incentives here, or not, I won't call it an incentive, we are seeking to purchase 30 additional parking space from the village. So the incentive letter that you have in front of you, the new one, would basically reflect a financial contribution from the Lalazarians to the village in the amount of $4,460,000. That is in addition, obviously, to other expenses, building permit fees and the like, inspection reports and all that. That is a financial contribution to the village into your capital reserves to do with what you have done so well in many other applications so far. And I just want to stress all of the impacts that we talked about and all the impacts you reviewed in the plan and the expanded EAF were all lessened as a result of losing and reducing it by 50 units, because most of the impacts of development relates to people and units. I'd like to just comment on some of the comments that were made last time and what the Lalazarians tried to accomplish with this. So after the last meeting, they studied this to see exactly how could we kind of reach a modification here that would be good for us and would also be good for the village, and they came up with this. One of the comments that was stressed by a lot of people at the last meeting related to traffic and the concern for traffic. But what was true and what is true is that as a result of when we do developments and when you consider them, you aren't considering them on an island. You're considering them against alternative developments. What else could be there or would be there? And your determination then is, which is the one that has the less impacts? Which is the one that's better for the community? In so many ways to look at it, but as to traffic, it certainly is an important one. We stressed last time, and our report showed that the traffic associated with the residential development proposed last time would be less than the office building complex that currently exists there. And I asked Pat Lenahan from VHB, who is the director of traffic, because that is a big issue. It was raised by many people in the audience as a concern, that he come in and just address that issue. So when I'm finished, I'm going to ask if it's okay with you to have Pat address two issues, and then anything else he feels he needs to add to it. But two issues is, one is looking at this development in this site, which is a less impactful use on the traffic? An office building that exists there now, or the proposed multifamily development that we have before us? And then also to weigh those two against the conflicting peak demands for each, or when you can expect certain things, when you can expect the highest use or the highest traffic use. And I think Pat will be able to do that. I think the board already, having seen many applications here, already understands this, but I think it's important that the public know that this is never a question of a development against a park. It's always a question of a development against what the other development might be. So I'll ask him to come up when I'm finished. The other thing is, and I want to make sure that the Lalazarians took very seriously the comments from everyone in the public. So they actually looked again at, which they had already done, looked at a combination of a mixed-use building, and someone suggested maybe office and then residential. That office and residential can exist and coexist in a downtown, but not in the same building. So that they don't think is a viable and a good way to design these buildings. And the other one would be some type of retail use on the first floor. And that was looked at. That was looked at actually before this application was presented. It was looked at again. And the answer I get from talking to the Lalazarians is that while this is a downtown, a TOD building, it is in walkability to the downtown and will help create a more vibrant downtown. It doesn't, by its nature around there, have a lot of retail uses. So if he does not want to create any retail uses in the building that might conflict with the downtown, which the Lalazarians support the downtown. So his hope is that the people that live in his building will walk to the downtown and do all the other things they're going to do there and not stop in a first floor that might have some retail. So he's examined it again. It was suggested last time, and it really wouldn't be appropriate for this building, or as appropriate as just a residential building. And then the last point is, and I guess that I'll make, and then I'll answer questions, and I'll reserve some time for any further comments, but we have this big question always about suburban and preserving suburban, and as I touched on in the beginning, it is the belief that you've embarked on something that's going to be a downtown that is thriving, that needs to have some connectivity from east to west. The Willis Avenue going underneath, that's a kind of a headwind at that concept of trying to connect east to west. A building and a development like this with Birchwood over there, it does begin to connect east and west. And I know, for instance, if I lived at Birchwood, I would never walk to the downtown from there because it seems like a long walk and it's dead at night to go there, and I'm gonna be walking down in a dead time. You get another building there or two buildings there with a lot of people, a lot of things going on, I think that you're gonna get that connectivity. If I was at Birchwood then, I'd say, well, you know what, I'm walking through another community of buildings like mine, and I think that walk becomes a lot more useful. This development, if approved, will help build up and create the downtown. We talked last time about whether it's happening or not, and I've asked the Lalazarians over the years this, and I think Kevin has mentioned to me, and I think your planner mentioned, there has to be a threshold where it starts coming in, and the folks that study whether they're going to put money into other uses in a downtown, they look at it in terms of numbers. They don't look at it like there's a vacant store there, let me throw something in there and see if I can make it go. You want the ones that actually study the demographics and make a determination that there is enough traffic there, there's enough foot traffic to sustain what I have to do, and that's what this building will help provide, and that's what I think is good. And there would be not good to create a situation where at night it's a dead space, another dead space. Because you know from Morgan Park and 1/3 and even Allure and some of the other ones, you know that they're not dead at night, and that's a good thing. That people in a downtown that are doing what they're supposed to be doing create that vibrancy that we look for in that. So that's my presentation on the continued hearing, and I reserve, if I could, Mayor, to comment on any other comments that are made and any questions that you have for me. If you don't have any right now, I'll ask Mr. Lenahan to come up.
Yeah, that's great.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Mr. Walsh.
Thank
Mr. Lenahan could come up.
Thank you, Kevin. Good evening, Mayor, members of the Board of Trustees, and staff. My name is Patrick Lenahan. I'm the Director of Transportation at VHB's Long Island office in Hauppauge. Thank you for the opportunity to come back and provide a little more information on the application. My office prepared a detailed traffic impact study, as Mr. Walsh said, that was submitted to the village as part of the application. That traffic impact study found some very small impacts from the traffic anticipated to be the traffic that would be associated with the development of these two buildings. And Kevin talked a little bit about the, let's call it high side conservative nature of that analysis. We've now reduced the number of units about 10%. The traffic study assumed about just under 10,000 square feet of what would be outward facing retail, which is now off the table, is my understanding. And that, you know, in terms of percentage of traffic of the whole development, that was a fairly significant chunk. The office or other development that could potentially go here versus the proposed development is an interesting question, because we also took a conservative approach in that nature. When we conducted the counts for the traffic study, that office building was about 50% occupied. In the performance of our study, we took no credit for the traffic that was currently in that office building, moving in and out, which was a little, if we would have looked at what the office building was generating at 50% occupancy, it was a little bit less than what these proposed buildings will generate. But it was significant. But to make sure we go in search of impacts to see if we're going to have any impact, we took no credit for that. So it's conservative in that nature. Were the property redeveloped as something else besides multifamily residential. We can talk about general office. We don't know how big it would be. But just to use as an example, the existing office building, were it fully tenanted, in the morning peak hour, we would generate from an office building of this size, about 170 peak hour trips, where this building, with the reduction in the number of units and the elimination of the retail, would be just under 100 in that one peak hour period. Conceivably, you could have medical office here. I know it's a balance between parking and everything else, but medical office of a similar size, you would probably see traffic about twice as heavy as that, and that traffic would continue through the course of the entire day. Business hours, basically. Office buildings are also, general office buildings, back to general office, are generally much more peaky than residential. You know, a residential building, folks wake up in the morning, they leave over the course of a few hours, they're going different distances to work, so it's kind of steady. Office buildings have abrupt peaks at the top and bottom of the hour. You know, some folks have to be at work at 8:30, other folks have to be at work at 9 o'clock, 8 o'clock. It tends to be more peaky. So when we look at the peak hour periods where we find most congestion, and that's during the week in the AM commuter period and the PM commuter period, not only would an office use of this sort of size, and we don't know exactly what the size might be, would certainly have more impacts in the area on traffic than the multifamily residential that's proposed. And if you have any questions, I would take them now, or we can wait till later.
We'll wait till later.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Pat. We have nothing else to present. We're open to questions, and we'll respond to any comments from the board and questions from the board and also the public.
Well, I'll start off with a comment, and then I do have some questions. You know, my comment is I want to thank you and the Lalazarian family for hearing what we had to say and hearing what the residents had to say, and make a significant, 10% decrease in the unit size, and make some modifications to make it not as tall. And particularly the north building, because although it's the one closest to the tracks, it's also the one actually closest to our residential homes on Roosevelt and Liberty and that neighborhood right there, where it could potentially be seen from. So the fact that the north building is lower on the north side, facing the tracks, but really facing the village of Mineola, whereas the one on Old Country Road, frankly, is facing the court buildings and is facing the village of Garden City. So I appreciate that for sure, because 50 less units is, 100 less residents, it's 75 less cars, and it does bring down a handful less students, and it does bring down the density of it for sure. The question that I had is why the arrival at, rather than taking, 25 off of one and 25 off of the other one, why keep one the same in terms of unit count and the other one take the 50 off?
I think I know the answer, but before I say what I think is the answer, can I take
Sure,
one minute?
sure.
It was what I thought. The way the buildings are gonna lay out and be designed, the interior of them is, one of the buildings, and I think we've alluded to this, every one of the Lalazarian buildings are slightly different. The architects are different, the aesthetics are different, they all intend to do something different. In this building, in this situation, they would like one of the buildings to have a little bit larger units, and that would be the one that has the less number of units in them. So the footprints in those units might be a little larger, and they would match better the parking that's been set up underneath for each one of them to get closer to a perfect fit in terms of the number of spaces in those. So it's really that is the rationale. And I think they didn't think that it would, you know, they're so close and they are, that it would matter that much, but that was the internal rationale they had.
And there will be no cross parking, right? In other words, if I live in the north building, I don't have to park my car in the south building potentially because,
There'll be,
the parking will be underneath my building.
it will
that
be
correct?
underneath your building, but the parking, available parking in each building. Everyone in your building, you'll get a spot assigned and it'll be in your building.
Right.
The excess spaces, which there are, will be located in the lot, in the parking garage that has the biggest footprint for parking.
Parking,
Yeah.
correct. And I also do want to mention a couple of other things that you kind of glossed over, and I don't know if we made a point. As part of this project, the applicant also purchased a current two-story brick building that has a deli and I believe a barber and perhaps some law firm right above it there. And that will be demolished,
Yes.
correct? And
Yes.
there will be nothing put in its place. It will be
That-
landscaped, open
Well,
space.
The building, the south building will incorporate much of that land, but then there'll be a setback off that. So there'll be nothing else there. That building will be demolished. I think from everyone's view, it's a dilapidated building that should be demolished. And the new building would overlap that, but it'll have side yard setbacks that the additional land will afford it to be able to have.
Okay. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you. I also echo the mayor's sentiments of appreciating that you heard us and the residents on all of our concerns. While it is less units, traffic still concerns me a little bit, but I agree with what was just presented about the resident versus the office space, so thank you for that. I know it's probably out of your range, but I do think that we should eventually consider a stoplight on that, as spoken about outside of Birchwood, because it will help alleviate some of it. But I'm not as concerned after hearing your presentation, so thank you for that. I'm happy to see some life down there. You know, I do live on that end of the village, and that is a dilapidated building. It is kind of dead and desolate at night, so I appreciate that there's gonna be some new life and some foot traffic and some residents who could walk and spend some money in our downtown and support our local businesses. So I really thank you for that. And I know that the village having worked with this developer before, we know that you stay here, you support our village, and you build really beautiful buildings. So I appreciate that you heard us, so thank you.
Ms. Casado?
Thank you. Mr. Walsh, good evening.
Good evening.
Mr. Lazarian and your crew, good evening to you as well. So I want to go back to maybe 2 weeks prior to our December 13th hearing. You presented your proposal, and my reaction back then was absolutely no. Too high, too many people. But at the hearing, you did your job, and you convinced me to vote yes. But here we are 5 weeks later. Time for me to rethink this. At the September 13th meeting, I believe I told you that over the past 2 years, this board approved 5 other residential establishments. And my concern back then was water, sewage, traffic, infrastructure. And that's my concern right now. So can you really guarantee me that your bill, so with all those, and all those structures aren't even being occupied now, and only 2 of those 5 structures are being built. So how do I know that your numbers are the right numbers? I raised this issue at another hearing last week. I've got a major concern with what I said. So with that being said, you know what? I have to thank you for billing those, the electric charges outside the building. Your billings are great, but you know what? I'm thinking no right now. I don't think at this time it's gonna work. Thank you.
Mr. Clark?
Good evening, and thank you for listening to our concerns and making the changes to address those concerns. I think it's in the right direction. I recently walked the property in the last week, and it's terrible down there. The parking garage is near collapsing. The building is old and needs to be replaced. I think the water issues have been addressed. The sewer issues, I think, have been addressed. I think the project is just what we need in that area to bring some life to it, so I vote aye.
Thank you. Trustee Salaski?
I really have no questions other than thank you for listening to us and the concerns of this board and the residents. I'm very happy to see that top floor is tiered back. I think that will give it a nice look as you're coming down that corridor of Old Country Road. And the less units, I'm glad we have reduced the density there. The traffic is also still a concern. It would be a concern, I think more of a concern if it was an office building, whether it was general business or a medical building. And so I think this being a residential would probably have the least impact on traffic, but I still think it's something that we need to explore, especially a light on by the Birchwood. I think that would probably be a very good addition in that area. So thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Salaski. You know, before I open it up to public comment, yesterday I was actually on a Zoom call with the Empire State Development with a town supervisor from the East End, a mayor of Suffolk County Village, actually two mayors of Suffolk County Villages, myself and another mayor of a Nassau County Village, and some planners, and we're talking about the same thing, and the state is talking about it. We're talking about the need for housing. We're talking about the need for downtown revitalization. We're talking about the need for transit-oriented development. And so whether we approve this building or don't approve this building, this is not gonna stop the movement from the state and here locally on Long Island, from the Long Island Association to labor, to hospitals wanting, needing housing, and it's a way for us to keep young professionals here. And the agreement from subject matter experts and from these other mayors in very, very different places, South Shore, East End, Nassau County, was that you want these decisions made at the local level. You want them to be made by the people that live here and that understand it, and you don't want it to be a top-down approach. And I've mentioned this before, and I'd much rather have the applicant here making a presentation to this village board with my residents here being able to tell us what they think, rather than a bureaucrat in Albany telling us what to do and where to put it, looking at things in vacuums. And I'm not trying to scare anyone, but that would be happening. It would be happening. We only have a very finite number of lots like this. I know that people are concerned, and Mr. Casato's concerned about, well, we're building this and we're gonna build more. We are literally going to run out of lots. This happens to be in a part of the village that is kind of blighted, if you will. It is abandoned, it is not vibrant, and thankfully we don't have too many parts of the village like that, so there won't be this opportunity. It's a singular opportunity. And when I think about, as I drive down Franklin Avenue, and I think about the old Sears building that is now being converted to medical use, that is going to generate a lot of traffic, because you're going to have people coming in 8, 9, 10 hours a day, every single day for appointments. Add on to that the employees, add on to that the doctors, staff, et cetera. And I'm not telling Garden City what to do, but certainly I think we could agree that if that were a residential building, it would be less intensive in terms of traffic, and you don't have to be a traffic engineer to figure that out. You just have to drive down Franklin Avenue, and once that building opens, you will see it. So I know we're not going to get everything that we all want all the time, but I do know that from this particular applicant, we will get a high-quality building, a safe building, a beautiful building, and an applicant that is committed to this village and to the vision of the village. So that's all I'll say, but I'll open it up to, anything else, Mr. Walsh?
No, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Board, for comments, and I'll
Mayor,
reserve.
can I just say something here?
Yeah.
I definitely agree what you said, but when you add up all the buildings that we are approved, there's gonna come an issue when water and sewage and infrastructure is gonna be an issue. That's all I wanna say.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Board.
Anyone in the second row? Anyone in the third row?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the board.
Good
Mr.
evening.
Gibbons. Mary Devanzo, 3 Birchwood Court, Mineola. As a resident of Birchwood Court, I don't have the luxury of having a parking space, and I have to park off-site on Front Street. Front Street is a one-way street running east to west. There are 6 businesses, law firms on Front Street, as well as the Hudson House, which I believe is maybe a 5-story senior citizen development. The problem with Front Street is, now I understand the north building, traffic will be entering on Front Street to enter the building. If I'm not correct on that, just let me know.
Correct.
Okay. So the problem with Front Street, we have a problem with Front Street right now, being that I park there every day, go to work from there. It's a one-way street, but you have, even though there's not a lot of volume of cars from Hudson House and the businesses, they all take the one-way street in the wrong direction to come out on Roslyn Road. And I know this because when I come home at night, I have to come off of Roslyn Road from north to south, and make that turn, which you have to make a very wide turn due to the way the configuration of the sidewalk is from the, from the offset from the bridge. You have to swing, and you have cars coming out. Granted, they're going all the way to the right side of the street, but you're breaking the law. You're going the wrong way. And when I kind of yell out my window, you're going the wrong way, all I get is a middle finger salute. Okay. So what I would rather suggest right now is that you should put the red and white do not enter signs facing Roslyn Road, so that could be some more of a deterrent for people not to do this, because you're gonna have an increased problem when you start with this development, if it's approved, traffic that is going down Front Street, you're gonna have still cars coming the opposite direction, and you're gonna have an accident. And while those people do come out Roslyn Road, they're making a right and they're making a left, which is very dangerous to go under the underpass. Also, you can sit one of your traffic code enforcement agents there, maybe between 3 and 6, just to see what I'm speaking about, because it does happen. And it happens every day, and I only notice it like when I'm coming home from work at about 5 o'clock.
We can't enforce moving violations, but I will call the 3rd precinct tomorrow and ask them. I mean, people are gonna do stupid things, and you can't fix that sometimes,
do.
but we certainly, I do like your suggestion about putting additional signage. I think there will be an education process of the residents of this building to make sure that they do go west when they exit the building.
Right.
Actually, they're exiting the building on 3rd, so they're only entering.
Entering on Front,
They're
yes.
only entering on Front, and they're exiting on 3rd,
Right.
but to make sure that they don't come down the other way. So, yeah, I know that area well.
Yeah.
And I can't believe that people do that.
Well,
That is-
like I said, I'm an eyewitness to it every
No,
day.
I
And
don't
like I
doubt-
said,
I
I
don't
try
doubt.
my best to say you're going the wrong way, but like I said, I always get something not nice. Also at Birchwood, I wasn't here at the presentation, but I did catch the meeting on television, and I echo Trustee Solosky about Birchwood, being that there's no light at that intersection. It's very, very dangerous. Yes, people are taking their own lives in hand when they're trying. I'm guilty of it myself. I don't want to walk down in the corner to cross.
Right.
It's a long stretch between that light on Roslyn Road to Second Street.
Mm-hmm.
And the speed limit is 20 miles an hour, and people
one
are
does.
going 30 and 40 miles an hour.
At least.
I saw a young lady with her baby in the baby carriage, and she almost got clipped. And somebody at Birchwood several years ago
Mhm.
was hit there at that intersection, and people have been advocating it for more than 20 years to put a light there. And they thought after the railroad was gonna go in, there was gonna be some consideration that the county would put a light there. Nothing has happened.
Well, I think this could be
Hopefully,
the
that could be
opportunity to
something.
resurrect that conversation. I lived at Birchwood when that was going on, and I liked the idea then, and I like the idea now, but not to throw my friends at the county under the bus.
No,
But we have several things on the list that we
Right.
want to talk to the county about.
but it would be a shame that they have to wait for somebody to be killed
Right.
to put a light
Right.
there. I
We-
mean,
we-
that's
We hope
ridiculous.
that that's not the case.
Now, as far as the north building coming down 50 units,
Yep.
was it? Does that decrease the number of floors?
No.
No, so it's 10 stories?
Yeah, but the
Or-
back is set, the
Set
rear
lower.
of the building is set back 10 feet, so
Right.
it does give it this more tapered
Well,
look.
the aesthetics would be better also for those residents in the Hudson House.
Right.
Because, again, that is a lower grade building
Right.
than this. The other thing, the other traffic concern is that, as you know, Roslyn Road veers right and left.
Mhm.
Across from, on the northwest corner where the yellow house is, the Gutman Law Firm.
Mhm.
So there's no stop, there should be a stop sign on that corner, because
Right.
they just race through, because the stop sign is only at, when you get to Old Country Road.
Right.
And that's also a danger, because cars are coming across, people are going this way, and that's dangerous to pedestrians crossing there. So a stop sign should be
And I
there.
think this gives us an opportunity, because it has been essentially deserted for so long,
Right.
just with that small mix of small law firms, this allows us to put a light on it, have the county work on trying to get those, again, because this is county
Right.
road, so they control the traffic lights there, any stop signs that has to be on their property, any striping or anything like that would be up to them, but this obviously gives us the opportunity to resurrect those conversations.
Right. And as far as the road surfacing on those two streets, which is very poor, would that be something that the developer would be taking care of, or would the village be taking care of that? Because you're not gonna wanna put up buildings and have two roads that are in very poor shape.
That's a conversation that we'll have with Mr. Lalazarian, but,
Because it's
you know,
definitely-
if his prior
Right.
projects are any indication, he absolutely would love for his residents to step out onto a nice street. There's gonna be some heavy equipment there for a
Right.
very long time.
Right.
And, obviously, the condition of the road will deteriorate as a result of that, but that's a conversation that we'll have with him.
Okay, and the property after the little office building where the Hawaiian Chen, is that going down?
No, that's not it. The property just to the west of that, the two-story brick building that has an attorney on the
Right,
second
that I'm
floor,
aware of.
has a deli and I believe a
And
barber
then
shop.
east of that, where the Dunkin' Donuts is that going away?
That's not going, that's
Okay.
staying there
So
as
that, the
well,
building is gonna be right there in between
in between.
those two?
So although it will occupy partially part of that property,
Yes.
as you're coming from the east, the building will not be right up to the property line. It will actually have this kind of inviting, open, it will be set back on that southeast corner significantly. And then essentially, if you look behind you, you'll have a pretty decent length driveway
Mhm.
from that spur to enter that south building. So the building from the east is going to have a substantial size lot where there will be no structures on it, where it will be just plain, I shouldn't say plain, where there will be landscaping. And then if you look behind you, these two huge horseshoe open courtyards, if you will, facing each other, this kind of mirror images. Again, if you're, to Mr. Walsh's point, if you're walking from Birchwood and you're walking across, you're not being hit with a 100-foot wall. You're doing a 50-foot wall, then a 50-foot open space, very similar to Morgan Park, where it doesn't seem that it's going to let light in and it's going to give it a more open feel.
Right.
So it's not perfectly square.
And my other concern is the fire safety of this building. There's 10-story buildings. I don't know if our fire trucks are now more than 6 stories high, the ladder trucks?
I think 70 feet, no, 100 feet, I think, 110
100?
feet is our highest ladder.
110
feet, yeah, but
110?
110 feet, but these buildings, and I'll let the chief speak to
Right.
it, but these buildings are completely fireproof, obviously, and, you know, it's, New York City Fire Department doesn't have, you know, ladders that reach 1,000 feet. Or
No, I
600.
understand that.
Right, so they, and again, those of us who've watched the construction of the previous buildings, this will not be a stick building, this will be, you know, brick and block and steel and cement,
Right.
not, you know, not wood.
And no, there's no sprinkler system?
No, it's fully sprinklered.
Oh, it is?
Fully
Oh,
sprinklered, in
okay.
every nook and cranny.
Okay,
Yeah,
great.
yeah, absolutely.
So I think
Would-
that should be a precedent going forward if we decide, the village decides to put any more apartment living.
Yeah, and remember that there are laws, and to answer some of the concerns that Mr. Casado had, when it comes to certain things, state law supersedes village law, such as fire safety, for example, or even county law. When it comes to the fire marshal, he's the one that is going to approve the sprinkler system. Water and sewer, we can approve the project all day long, but if the county comes up and says there isn't enough capacity to handle it, then it doesn't matter what we say, the project can't move forward. And even those other buildings like the Allure that were not built, in my opinion, as well as Mr. Lalazarian's, in between the floors, they have sprinklers. They have sprinklers inside the structure because it's wood. So, and again, we don't make that. That's New York State Fire Code. So I think in terms of fire safety, our current chief, our previous chiefs have always been involved in knowing what these buildings were. As I mentioned last time, oftentimes as the buildings are being built, the fire department is invited to come in, to tour the buildings, to look at them, to know the access, the ingress, egress, and so I know that if our fire department had any concerns, they certainly would voice them to us, whether here in a public forum, or they would certainly have expressed that concern, and so I think, and I know that our firefighters, I was actually just with them on Monday at the Nassau County Fire Service Academy in Bethpage, which we were training at, and they did an unbelievable job. We had about 40 or 50 firefighters going into a simulated house fire, and then a simulated house fire that spread to a second structure, and they did it 3 times in probably an hour, and they did a phenomenal job. I mean, the training is second to none, and our fire department is second to none.
And both units have pools on both buildings?
I believe one is an outdoor pool, one's an indoor pool. Yeah, one building has an outdoor pool, the other building has an indoor pool.
Is
but
it a
yes,
roof pool?
One is a roof, they're both roof.
Okay, now the roof pool, is that situated over the garages or over apartments?
That is over apartments.
Okay,
Yeah,
because,
over apartments.
you know,
Leaks?
a friend, yeah, somebody that I work with was the former property manager at the Allure, and she told me that their pool had, I don't know what year this was.
But the
pool.
Allure, their pool
It
is
is over
in the
the garage.
courtyard. Yeah.
Well, it's
yeah.
over the, she said that they were over the garages,
Yes,
but they
they
had
are.
leaks,
Yeah.
so my concern by asking this question is where are the pool located?
I do believe that if the pool at Morgan Park, or, and even the one at 1/3, they are complete units. They're not like built on site. Essentially, it's like putting a huge, but bathtub, but I'll let Mr. Walsh answer that.
Because it was just like a concern if it happened in somewhere.
And I believe, and obviously the outdoor pool will be drained
Sure.
in
In
the colder months. but I'll let the applicant address that.
Okay. All right, well, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Vansel. Anyone in the fourth row? Anyone in the fifth row? Sixth row? Oh,
Hello, Louis Panachuli, President of the Chamber, and Tony, I was not pulling rank. I just have to leave soon. Okay, sure. I just like to speak in support of Mr. Lalazarian's project. I've been listening to all the comments. I'm very impressed with the building. In the past, I've heard people say things like, sorry, gotcha. I've heard people say things like, we've been building too many apartments in Mineola, it's gonna look like Queens. Well, I grew up in Queens, and the geometry of the apartment buildings in Queens is very simple. It's a rectangle, and these are magnificent structures, and what else would we want to put there? More office buildings that would close at night, and then there'd be more, you know, solitude in the downtown area where we're looking to revitalize it and bring more businesses. They're well-lit structures and more people. There's no homes around that's going to be disturbed. It's basically a business part of the village. And I think it can only attract more businesses and more activity to the downtown area. The apartments are within 35 minutes into New York City and very attractive for this new generation of young people that maybe don't want to own a home and deal with landscaping and shoveling snow and things like that. So I think this is a great idea, and I hope that the mayor and the trustees will look at this positively and pass this and allow the building to be built. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Panachula. Thank you so much.
Good evening, Tony Lubrano, 159 Jericho. I want to speak also in support of the project, but not just necessarily the project, but in support of the applicant. I had a conversation with Mr. Lalazarian at the time that Morgan Park was going up, and I was asking him why it seemed to me to be taking so long to put up the facade of that building. And he explained to me that they were using 9 specific different size shaped bricks in a very detailed and specific pattern. And that's why it was taking so long. And I'm saying, like, my gosh, this has got to cost a fortune. And he could have put this up with a much simpler plan that would have been fine, saved him a lot of money. But it's obvious he's not looking to put up a building that's fine. He's looking to put something that's going to be, that he can be proud of and his family generations from now can be proud of. So I just think that when, at the same time that was going up, or shortly before, we saw the other property down the road, which was built by 2x4s. And you could see that was something that looked like it was put up as quickly as possible, as inexpensively as possible, and that's not what the Lalazarian family does. They put up properties that this village can be proud of for generations to come, and that's why I think it's important to support him and all the good things he does for this village. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lubrano. Anyone else in the sixth row?
Good evening, Mayor,
Good evening.
trustees, staff. I'm Ray Sikorsky. I am I have been in business in Mineola for over 20 years. I have been president of the Mineola Chamber, the Mineola Lions Club, and also the Mineola Garden City Rotary. So my heart and soul has been in Mineola for many, many years. The purpose of I'm here this evening is not to speak about the details of the building, because as I've seen and I've heard everybody speak, and I've been at Morgan Park and the Lalazarian buildings, and I know they're going to be exceptional buildings. But I want to speak about sustainability, and I had spoken about that at another hearing for another building. And sustainability is very important because these properties, and someone touched base on the fact that the parking garage behind the Lieber building is in disrepair. That had to be changed, and that, as the mayor had said, that really is an area that has to have some development, and I think this is the perfect development. This sustainability issue is being brought up in so many different communities, whether it be Westbury, Garden City, Hempstead, New Hyde, even my town of New Hyde Park is going to do a major project on Jericho Turnpike west of the town hall on the south side of the street. for unsustainable property. So it's very exciting. But what I want to bring to all of your attention is Newsday ran an article last week on Friday the 13th about what is going on in downtown areas near the Long Island Railroad. And it is, and on the cover it says, on track from millennial remote workers to retirees, what draws people to live in transit-oriented developments. And it was very apropos. And I opened it up and I read, all aboard for renting near the Long Island Railroad. Hybrid workers, retirees, and Oh, I'm sorry. I'll slow down. Retirees and millennials embrace alternatives to owning. Going through the article, I came upon a resident, 72 years old, a retired nurse. After her husband died last year, she moved from the Mineola Cape she lived in for 48 years into an apartment in the same community. The house was too big, she said. I stayed local. I didn't know where to go for an apartment, and she found one on Old Country Road. It's probably one of the most convenient buildings in Mineola, she said. You can walk anywhere. After owning a house for much of her life, she said she was ready to rent, paying about $3,300 a month. I just didn't want to own anything anymore, she said. You don't have to take care of anything. So that's addressing the type of person that's moving in. It's not only people in their 25 to 35 age. This article covers a 52-year-old, a 72-year-old, a 75-year-old, and a 29-year-old. So I think the village is spot on with approving these buildings, because I think it's an amazing thing. And the Lalazarian, the wonderful buildings that the Lalazarians are building it's just going to be a positive. I want to address also, when I was at the hearing last week, people were using the word transients. And transients it's really not a very proper name to be using. In the dictionary, a person who moves from place to place. And that's not what's going to happen in these buildings. Because many of these people, if you read this article, they've been there for a year and they're renewing and renewing and renewing. So it's not at all a transient situation. And I looked at the entrance to Morgan Park, and I've been there several times. I was at the tree lightings, and as people have said here today, it's just an amazing place to be, and you don't know really where you are, and you're in downtown Mineola, so that's wonderful. And then urbanization was used, and urbanization many times is considered something that's not a positive thing. But the Mineola Civic Association, and I'll just run through the organizations in Mineola: the Chamber of Commerce, the Mineola Volunteer Ambulance Corps, Mineola Lions Club, Mineola Auxiliary Police, Mineola Garden City Rotary Club, Kiwanis Club of County Seat, and Friends of Mineola Library, Mineola Historical Society. Now, these are all vibrant, dynamic organizations within Mineola. Urbanization and these vibrant organizations that do so much for the community, we would not be so involved if we were becoming so urbanized. And you've all been part of the Mineola Street Fair last week, a couple of weeks ago, and it was one of the biggest, the best fairs ever. So I really am proud that we're keeping up with the current trend, and the trend is very positive. And I think my colleagues who are here this evening are all in support of where we are going and how we are doing it, and I'm proud to be saying this to you all now.
Thank you, Mr. Sikorsky.
Thank you.
Anyone in the seventh row?
I have to write my notes down. Honorable Mayor, Honorable Board. Joel Harris, 15 Short Ridge Drive. I am 1 month short of being a 55-year resident. And I know when I look around me, I'm not alone in this. I was going to say, I've seen Mineola through many different sets of eyes. I've seen it as a high school student. I've seen it as a young married man. I've seen it as a new father, and now a retired businessman. I've been here through very busy times, and I've been here through not so busy times, and times of growth as well. Let me start off by saying, before I say my last piece, I am very in favor of this building and this project. I am very in favor of the Lalazarian philosophy, which is all about community. And most people know that I'm a member of an organization, and our mission statement is communities and children. I think we have a wonderful opportunity here to continue to be a trend-setting Long Island community, and we are a trend-setting. I know we've been written up. Anybody that follows out Eric Alexander, and I know we recently received an award from Eric Alexander and his organization about our forward thoughts and the way we create and the way we're keeping Mineola young and vibrant. And by creating more of these TOD, transit-oriented development communities, we will help our downtown areas, because what's inevitably going to happen when these buildings go up is it's going to spread. People from these buildings are going to want to stay local. They're going to want to have places to walk, and I think we're going to next see vibrancy on the Main Street area. So I think this is a great thing. I'm looking forward to it, and I'm very happy for our village. I'm very happy for this phase of my life to see what I'm now seeing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Anyone else at all? Okay. Mr. Walsh, you mind coming back up?
Thank you,
I
Mayor.
think there was only one question
There-
about the pool.
There was about the pool, and then, yes, and so Kevin Lalzarian told me, it's like you described, Mayor, it's welded stainless steel in a tub, will not leak, and they were sure of that, so that's by design. I would also like to say to Ms. DeVenza, because you raised that point about the light on Roslyn Road, and I had a discussion with Kevin, and you all know Russ Sutherland, who for many years was the president over there, and that has always been an issue for him. He's tried very hard to do that. And maybe collectively, with the assistance of the government and the Birchwood and the other, if this is approved, the other owner there, something positive can happen with the county with respect to getting that light there. We certainly wouldn't mind being part of that.
Great.
And other than that, I have nothing further to add, Mayor.
Okay. You know, as I sit here, and I don't want to prolong it, we had a hearing about a month ago, and we had a lot of comments and a lot of questions, pro and con, and obviously it's not easy, because we would all like to live in very idyllic park-like settings, but that doesn't come with the convenience of living 35 minutes from Manhattan, living 20 minutes from the Atlantic Ocean, having shopping and a major hospital system within our village. Those conveniences obviously are not compatible with, you know, rural lifestyle. But as I sit here and I think about long before, perhaps even before I started teaching, there is a piece of land over in Garden City, and I apologize that I keep using Garden City, but they are our neighbor to the south, and often we get compared to them. And they have a property called St. Paul's that has remained there for 30 years, completely undeveloped, and no one knows what to do with it. Nobody has the political will to really do anything with it, and that's what this would be, right? And perhaps Mr. Lalazan would walk away, and he would sell the building, and we'd be waiting 5 years, 10 years, or, you know, what's there now, I think we can all agree on, is not anything that we want to represent the village. We can argue about 98 feet, 88 feet, 450 units, 490 units, 400 units, 200 units, but what I think we can argue about is the fact that we need to do something in that area. This is the presentation that, the application that is in front of us. We have history, not only with this developer, but we have history of development, and we have history of traffic, we have history of school-age children, we have history of water, we have a history of sewage, we have real data, real numbers, and yes, Old Country Road has a lot of traffic. It had a lot of traffic, you know, 10, 15, 20, 25 years ago. Mineola Boulevard at 5 o'clock in the afternoon has a lot of traffic. It sure does, especially when one single car parks in that right lane when you're not supposed to park there from 4 to 6, and they block traffic going back. We all know that. Again, that is one of the costs to the benefits of living in a central location like Mineola. I like the fact that the building's not going to look like Morgan Park. It's not going to look like 1/3 Avenue. It's going to match the aesthetic of the court buildings across the street, using limestone, I believe, the facade.
Limestone and porcelain.
Lime-
We do have samples of
Okay,
those. We
limestone
brought
and
them.
porcelain, so you could take a look at the samples. And to Mr. Lobrano's point, that's not cheap. Not every applicant that comes here is looking to spend more money to make their project more, they're not living in it, so why would they spend this money? Well, this applicant does, and I think it will be a building that the community is proud of. I feel confident that not only the applicant's engineers and the applicant's expert witnesses, but the numbers that come from the county regarding sewage, and the numbers that come from our school district regarding school-aged children, the numbers that come from this village, and the anecdotal knowledge that we have now from looking at Morgan Park, looking at 1/3 Avenue, looking at the Allure, at the Fairfield Metro site, and seeing that our tax base has increased, our schools have gotten a lot of money. We've gotten a lot of money. We've been able to refurbish a park. We've been able to build pickleball courts. We've been able to refurbish tennis courts. We're going to be able to buy a fire apparatus if we need one without burdening the taxpayers. And I think that that is a benefit. And people sometimes mention about a moratorium, about not building anymore. You know, we approved, I believe, Morgan Park in 2016, perhaps, 15, 16?
Yes.
And from then until this year, we did not approve any large applications of this size, right? I mean, we had a 54 unit on Searing Avenue, but that was this year as well. So if not, what are we gonna wait, 5 more years? Will that make it any better? Will that make it any more palatable? And while I sit on that phone call, and perhaps we don't, you know, some people said I don't think we get the credit that we deserve. I think that Mineola deserves more credit for what we've done down by our train station, and we are the model, and people are starting to see that we are the model. So I am in favor of this project. I think that the applicant going back and taking 50 units off is no small, you know, I'm not gonna call it a sacrifice, because we do know that everyone that comes here is in the business of making money, but it shows the commitment to building this project. He didn't take his ball and go home and, you know, and just wait, as they're doing in places like St. Paul's. So I am in favor of the project. Anyone else on the board like to make a comment?
Mayor,
Nope. Mr. Casada?
I agree with everything you said. These buildings are beautiful. They're going to add to the integrity of our village. But I want everyone to understand, I have an issue with the water, sewage, traffic, and infrastructure compared to the other buildings that we plan to build in our village. Something to look for in our future. So I will make my decision.
I have one thing to say. I just want to echo what you just said. Unlike, I think, everybody on this board, I actually moved here, was not born here and raised here. So I moved here in 2004. And what our village has become from then to now is night and day, and it's in a positive way. I'm very proud to live here. I'm proud of what the previous boards and this board is doing downtown, and I think this is just going to add to it. So I'm also just encourage everybody, you know, it's a balancing act up here. So it's, everybody wants this vibrant downtown, but then they want to say no to big projects with bringing people in that are going to spend money downtown. So it's a balance, and we're learning that. I think that we're doing a very good job at that, and I'm going to encourage everybody to embrace it, and I'm going to encourage everybody to shop local, support our village, support those places down there that we all want to have a vibrant downtown. You can't say let's have a vibrant downtown and then not go eat down there or not go shop down there. So I think this is just going to support it even more, and I'm proud to see what Mineola has become in the time that I've been a resident.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor, Mr. Clark, anything? No. Trustee Solosky?
No, I'm good,
No?
thank you.
I think that's, I was gonna add something else, but I won't. Anything else, Mr. Casada?
I said enough, I think.
Okay.
Maybe I said too much.
No, not at all. Of course, that's what we are here for, so I always feel like you can certainly say your piece.
And you know what,
Yep.
good. And you know, Mayor lets me speak my word. So Mayor, thank you for doing that.
Of course, of course.
Can I ask just one question? If this is approved, what's the timeline on it? When is it going to start and how long does it take?
Well, I think we've got one project through the pipeline that we're waiting for a permit, but they'll begin doing construction drawings and put this on the board as soon as, if they get approval, as soon as that is, we'll begin working on that. There's no delay in the timeline. We're looking, we've going to sequence the construction
Yeah.
using the garage first. We do have to respect the leases and the arrangements we've made with the tenants in the building, which we will do. And so it will be happening as soon as Kevin can do it.
And how long is the build once it starts? 2 years.
2 years.
Okay.
Realistically, it's fair to say 2 years.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, just, I mean, we were all breathing a sigh of relief that the train is finally completed. So I know there's gonna be some more construction, so as long as we're all, respectful of all of that, thank you.
And I'll also end with this, that I know that when we get to this point, there is a thought or an idea or an assumption amongst many that it's a fait accompli, but that is not the case. We turn down projects all the time, public projects or projects that never make it past our building department. I've been approached about building hotels in areas that they shouldn't be. I've been approached about projects that don't have adequate parking. The previous administration, the previous mayor was approached about a very large addition to a certain medical facility in our community. And that was roundly, so it's not like, we're not the land of no, but we're certainly also not the land of whatever. And there are many other things like that. I just think that there are some applicants who do their homework, who get a feel for what the board and the village likes, is willing to tolerate, and there's some history there. So there's plenty of times, there are plenty of projects that do not see the light of day. And that's what's great about having this overlay district and these overlay districts, is that we get to decide what projects we hear, what projects we don't. But remember, the projects that we don't hear, that we don't approve, that we don't entertain, those developers still have a right to build as of right. And oftentimes, the as of right choice may be worse than, a choice such as this. We know that. I just want to make sure that the public realizes that we have plenty of people out there that are not our friends, that would rather, that are not necessarily happy because they never got to this point. Mr. Gibbons, SECRA? Did I catch you off guard?
No, you didn't.
Did you think I was
No,
gonna
you
keep
didn't, Mayor.
talking?
I was listening to every word. Mayor, with regard to the CEQA review, the applicant submitted an extensive expanded environmental assessment prepared by VHB, who does a wonderful job addressing all the environmental concerns. In addition, the applicant completed Part 1 of the full environmental assessment form, and the village, as it's required to, completed Parts 2 and 3. The village has prepared a CEQA negative declaration and a supporting resolution. In the past, I have read all this into the record, and I have been counseled not to, so I won't. All these documents are available at either the building department or through the clerk's office, but I will like to read the salient portion of the supporting deposition, of the supporting resolution and ask for a vote on it. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the proposed action will not have a significant adverse impact on the environment, and be it further resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby adopts the attached CEQA negative declaration pursuant to the State Environmental Quality Review Act.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to accept the resolution.
Motion?
Motion by trustee Salaski. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by trustee Clark. Mr. Rivera, pull the board.
Trustee Clark.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sartor.
Yes.
Trustee Casado. To the CEQA, right?
Yep.
Yes. Trustee Salaski.
Yes.
Mayor Ferrer.
Yes. Okay. And now I would like to entertain a motion to approve the application.
Motion.
Motion by Deputy Mayor Sartori. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by trustee Clark. Mr. Rivera, please pull the board.
Trustee Clark.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sartor.
Yes.
Trustee You heard my concerns, I'm voting no.
Yes.
Yes. Congratulations, Mr. Lalazarian. Thank you, and obviously, I would say welcome to Mineola, but you know your way around it. Congratulations. Okay, I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing. Oh, no, we already closed the hearing. Right, we had, yes, okay. No? No, we didn't.
the public hearing.
No, we didn't, no. We continued, right. I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing.
Motion?
Motion by trustee Salaski, do you have a second?
Second.
By trustee Clark, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, good night, everyone. Give you a few minutes to clear up, and we'll be back out for the work session. Just give us a few minutes. Ms. Glassman, thank you very much.
Oh, is that from you?
It's my dinner, that's my dinner.
Thank you. Thank you.